So, Prof. Musa, thank you so much for making time to share your insights into the future of leadership.
Thank you very much for hosting me today.
It's great to have you on the show. And before we walk into the future, Prof, can you tell us a little bit about your background? Where did you grow up?
Okay, so I grew up in Gaborone in Botswana,
Yeah.
and that's a neighboring country. So a lot of people may be aware of that. So it's one of South Africa's neighbors, and it is much closer to the Northwest province. So that's where I grew up. I did all of my primary school there and my high school. And then I came to South Africa for university. So just a bit about myself, and a lot of people often wonder why I took, such a great interest in academics. My father is a teacher. My mother also has an early teaching background and early childhood teaching background. And so my parents were instrumental in inculcating a love for education. Initially, it was more of a love-hate relationship, really. But, as I grew older, I got to appreciate the value of education. And I must say, it has really taken me far. So I started school, I started homeschool actually with my mom. And soon I got into, formal schooling at the school where my dad was teaching at the time. And, I started school relatively early at 4 years old. And long story short, I completed my high school when I was 15. So I had quite an early start, both to, actually, I won't even say both to primary and university, because also secondary, I got an early start. So that's just a bit about my background.
So is it fair to say your dream career has always been about education and academics?
Not particularly, actually. I think I just end up steered in the right direction. So I really believe I ended up being exactly where I needed to be. And I don't believe in coincidences. So for me, even though at some point I was really curious and interested about, a corporate career, and I had like a few opportunities come up, but they would never materialize. So, I ended up finding more grounding on the academic side. And I must say, I really don't regret, life having steered me in that direction. And I consider it a blessing actually today that I ended up in the academic space, because I think it's more ideal for the person I am, my values, and just giving me a sense of purpose. And I do consult, in the corporate environment, but I can tell you, I don't know if I would be as fulfilled if it were like my fully fledged or full-time vocation as I am now in the academic space.
Now, Prof. Musa, you are the youngest ever PhD holder in Africa, right?
That
So,
is correct.
so can you tell us who inspired you in your early days? Or what inspired you?
I will say there's so many people actually that inspired me. Some of them didn't even know they did. But to be fair, I want to again highlight, two of the most pivotal individuals who really are, they should take the greatest credit actually for how I turned out, and that would be my parents, my mom and dad. They they were so intentional, and I don't know actually if they realized it at the time, but they were very intentional in terms of even the people I interacted with. Looking even in hindsight, one of the mentors that I looked up to as a child, they are the ones who kind of, subconsciously inculcated it in me, and they steered me in that direction because they believed that she was someone I could look up to. And all of that, was because of them being intentional, which I'm so grateful for. And I also try to do this as much as I can, being a parent now. But it's something I always hope that I can live up to, what the foundation that my parents were able to establish for me. And I appreciate it more now than then. Sometimes it felt like, oh, they were pushing me too much or too hard, but I really appreciate it. Even the times where they threw me in the deep end, or I felt like they threw me in the deep end, but I've really come to appreciate, the grounding that they afforded me, and just, being people that I could look up to, despite the fact that they had never traveled the journey that I have, but they saw something in me, and they stretched my potential as much as they could.
Now, Prof. Musa, looking back over your career, would you say there was a turning point where things could have gone different?
I think so. Things actually could have gone differently. And like I said, I don't have any regrets, and I'm glad that they didn't. And I won't mention, specific names of institutions or organizations, but there's actually an organization, a corporate-based organization that had headhunted me, and they wanted me to be part of their one of their divisions or teams within the organization, and it just never materialized. We were in talks and negotiations and so forth, but it never materialized. But I always look back on that, and you asking the question also triggers me right now to think, what could have become of me, if I had taken that route? And yeah, it's very interesting. I guess at this point we wouldn't know. And like I said, I do also consult within corporate spaces, but I wonder what a fully fledged corporate career would have looked like. But again, I have no regrets.
And tell us, what is driving you today?
Today, what mainly drives me, and I've been driven by a lot of things in the past, but now being a mother, I realize that I'm not only a role model to other, let's say, young emerging academics who draw inspiration from my story, as I have from stories of other phenomenal women that paved the way for me as a young academic. But I also now understand that I have a little one looking up to me, and it's something that really encourages me, because even previously, obviously, I faced challenges, but I had to draw the strength and the resilience from within myself, and it was always about, I need to do this for me. I've come so far, and it's been absolutely amazing that in the process I've been able to touch other lives, even though initially it wasn't intentional. But now, gradually that also became one of the things that drove me, knowing that there are other people who actually look at my story and think, I can also do it because she has done it, But now even more so that I have, someone I need to model just behavior, and when I say behavior, I mean all encompassing. I need to model, a positive being for her, and that honestly helps me even on the days when I feel like giving up.
Right. Now, Prof. Musa, looking into the future, and I know it's a big question, but what does the future of leadership mean to you?
The future of leadership for me means a smooth as possible transition. And I won't say seamless, because I don't think transition is ever really seamless, right? We strive for it to be seamless, but it never really is. But for me, it means that, that transition from one generation to another. And if you look actually interestingly at the workforce today, it is characterized by multiple generations, right? We have the most generations actually currently in the workforce than in any other period before. So it's so important that in the future, we create that, smooth as possible transition from the knowledge and expertise that those on this more senior spectrum or end of the continuum, that they feed, their knowledge and devolve it to the younger generations. And I believe that is the reason why it's so important to have all people from all walks of life. So whether it be different generations, different genders or sexual orientations, different backgrounds, different beliefs, different races, and all other, intersections of demography as we know it. It's so important to have all these voices make a contribution and create that amalgamation of perspectives that will allow us to envision a better future. And all of us have a contribution to make, and it all takes understanding that each one has something to contribute, no matter how small. When we have multidimensional perspectives, this helps us to bridge those gaps that exist. The gaps obviously being specifically between our past and our future. So us living in the present, mostly the present is about trying to create a better future by drawing on the lessons from the past, right? And obviously, I really believe in this, even as a researcher, that when we do research, you are using existing knowledge to try and forecast how you can improve the knowledge base in the future and other, subsections of all, phenomenons of life. So the future of leadership for me is basically boils down to that, understanding that everyone has a contribution to make and ensuring that we pass on the baton, right? It's like a relay race where we're all part of the same team at the end of the day. And as leaders, it's important to appreciate that we're not in competition with one another. And I know sometimes, unfortunately, there is a tendency among leaders to want to outdo the other. But the power is actually in coming together and using all these perspectives and creating, the bigger picture, using each of these perspectives as a puzzle piece, which will then create that bigger picture.
Now, Prof. Musa, these are challenging times as the world is stumbling from one crisis to the next. And I'm sure you've gone through your own challenges. What is your advice for future leaders in terms of challenges? What are some of the biggest challenges they should expect to encounter and hopefully overcome in their career?
I think everyone's journey is different, right? But there are fundamental challenges, and like you've mentioned, key challenges. They're challenges that will be unique to the individual. Then there are also challenges that are general among, the collective. For instance, I know that there are challenges that, let's say, male leaders will encounter as a collective. There are also challenges that female leaders will encounter as a collective. There are challenges that young leaders will encounter as a collective, right? But one thing remains uniform, and that is in the reality of challenge being, you cannot escape it, right? So it's unescapable, and, you cannot evade the reality of adversity in your journey, especially as a leader. But the key thing for me is to continuously go on a journey of self-awareness, self-mastery. And the interesting thing about self-mastery is that you never get to a point where you say, oh, I've now mastered myself, right? You're always getting to know different sides or facets to yourself that you never even knew existed. But it's critical to the success of our leaders today and in the future to take such challenges, right? It's very difficult to have a confrontation with yourself, by the way. People think conflict with other people is hard, but conflict with yourself is even more difficult. And that's why there's a proverb, an African proverb, which I like, which goes, if there's no enemy within, the enemy outside can do us no harm. Meaning, as long as you are at peace with yourself, there's not much, that can perturb you externally. Obviously, things will ruffle you up a bit, but not to the extent that they would if there is upheaval internally. And so it's very important to constantly be aware of ourselves. As a leader, when you enter a space, what kind of presence are you giving off? What kind of aura are you radiating from your personality, the person that you are, what you stand for? How do other people view you as a person and as a leader? So it's important to appreciate then that in that journey of self-awareness, you will obviously encounter as a leader people who don't agree with you. And again, you cannot please everyone, which is a key challenge as well about being a leader. But as long as you lead with integrity, which is also very challenging, right, in today's context, being a leader with integrity. Because sometimes, even though you want to be a leader with integrity, there's so much influence surrounding to which perhaps make you question your integrity when you have committed to that. So that's another challenge that leaders can expect to face. Also, the self-doubt. And this is one very important one to overcome, which ties in then to the importance of resilience. Understanding that you've gotten however far you have, and you had what it takes. So you must also have what it takes to carry on fulfilling the rest of your life's journey and purpose. This obviously, will come with other challenges along the way. We have such a scourge right now of mental health issues, right? And as leaders, you are so vulnerable to mental health challenges. But that's why also, as you lead and you help other people become the best of who they are, you must not forget to take care of yourself. When you give other people advice, to take care of themselves, it's important to also take that advice. Take care of your mental well-being, your emotional well-being, your physical well-being. It's often said that our bodies are the one house that we will have to live in forever, right? For as long as we exist. So in as much as you will, take time to make your place of abode habitable, it's also important to ensure that your body will be habitable for however long you have to live. But it's challenging trying to balance, right? Taking care of yourself and being the leader that everyone needs. Again, it becomes so important to strike that balance between what is important for everyone else in your team and what is important for you, because you are a critical part, a pivotal part of the team as well.
Now, Prof. Musa, as a mentor to future leaders, can you maybe share a success story or two where you mentored an upcoming leader and that person took your advice to heart?
This is a very interesting question, because being obviously in the academic space, right, we inadvertently get to mentor so many, individuals, I'd say hundreds, if not thousands, actually. And it's so amazing when you get to see how far they go, That for me is what gives so much meaning to the work that I do. the fact that someone, and sometimes because you get quiet students, you get the ones who are more forthcoming, and some of them you may not have even noticed them, but they may come to you and say, Prof, I was in your class before, and this is where I am now. You don't know, but some of the times when I felt like giving up and you gave, words of encouragement, or you just gave me a reason to keep going. And now I'm doing 1, 2, 3, and 4 in my life. That is something you cannot even put a price tag on. And even right now, besides students, I do get to mentor junior colleagues as well. And it's so amazing getting to see them grow also in their line of work. And thankfully, me having contributed to their work.
And Prof. Musa, looking back over your career, are there any role models of leadership that you encountered and maybe worked with that you would recommend future leaders should study and learn from?
So, very interestingly, there is one renowned leader, especially from a research perspective, and that is Prof. Janssen, right? He's currently with the University of the Western Cape, and he was previously with the University of the Free State, and he was actually leading the institution. And I obviously worked there previously, and it's one of those cases of, as I mentioned, that sometimes, you make a difference in the life of maybe a student that you've taught as a teacher or an academic, and you are not even aware of this. And for me, he's one of those because, having encountered him in this space, I got to observe, his way and his trajectory, his path, since I got to know of him and to know him, although obviously, he would not necessarily know me personally in that space at the time. But it's been, really amazing watching him go from strength to strength in his career and as a leader, and especially such a critical thinker as well in the field. And he's one person who a lot of, let's say, emerging academics could learn from. And obviously, I'm a bit biased when I speak about these leaders, because I'll mostly speak of those who are in the academic space. Another, amazing, phenomenal leader is, and a lot of people think that she's controversial, but the former Vice Chancellor of the University of Cape Town, she is absolutely phenomenal as well. And she's one academic that I've also, watched and observed. And it's really amazing because a lot of these people, when you watch them and observe their progression, they have no idea the impact that they're making. Just as I, have said that I'll have students that I have no idea the kind of impact and influence that I'm exerting on them unknowingly or unbeknown to myself. But, she's one of those, and she's a leader who I believe has led, with integrity and being true to herself, which I believe also is very critical as a leader, right? It's so easy to lose yourself trying to please the masses. But when you stand for something and you know that this is right, and you know that I'm looking, out for the best interests of others, and I have no hidden agendas, right? They say everyone has a hidden agenda, but at the end of the day, it's about having a vision and understanding that you have such a great responsibility to others who are watching you, to others who are benefactors of the role that you are holding in that particular instance. And for me, Prof. Piking is, an amazing example of a leader, especially as a woman. I'll be biased and say I am very inspired of the person that she is and the academic that she is. I have many other leaders I can speak about, but for now, I just wanted to highlight those two.
Thank you. Now, Prof. Musa, where can our listeners follow you and how can they connect with you?
They can connect with me via I'm there on social media, not always as active because I have a very demanding toddler, but I am available and accessible. I think you can also agree that on LinkedIn, I am there. I'm accessible. And if you just search for me, my name's Musawenkosi, Donia Saurombe. You'll find me on LinkedIn. And I'm also on Instagram. It's at Prof_Musawenkosi_DON_Saurombe, my surname. And yes, I'm also on Twitter. I can't remember my Twitter handle. I think it should be at Musa Saurombe, like no space between name and surname. Right. So yeah, that's where it can be accessed.
Thank you. And last but not least, what is your message for the millions of learners out there who are about to finish school and to enter the world of work, start a career? What are maybe one or two success principles they should keep in mind?
So the one I mostly give my students is, besides the family you come from, besides the institution you learned at, besides whatever networks or backing you may have or not have, you have a responsibility to build your brand. So you could have gone to the University of Harvard University, but if you don't build your own brand, you're not going to ride off of the reputation of Harvard. You may have gone to UCT, you may have gone to Wits University, any other prestigious university that has earned a name for itself. But as long as you don't create a name for yourself, then you're not going to be able to permeate the working environment and the system. Because at the end of the day, I believe employers are looking for someone who can do the job. They're not looking for a Harvard graduate. They're not looking for an Oxford graduate, a Cambridge, but they're looking for someone who shows the passion that they have, the hunger that they have, their inquisitiveness and willingness to learn. Always remember that learning is similar to the journey of self-mastery. You never arrive. You can never know everything. And it's important to have a teachable spirit, because when people see that, then they gain confidence in the fact that you will be able to be flexible and shape-shift within reasonable extent to different challenges, whether it's external pressures, internal pressures, or any challenges that you may face as an emerging professional, and as you grow into a more well-seasoned professional. So build yourself, build your brand, build your name, and eventually people, sooner than later, people will start to notice and they will start to trust you more with responsibility.
Prof. Musa, thank you so much for sharing your insights and your wisdom and so many nuggets about leadership and life. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate being invited to share my story.